Good afternoon, dear colleagues and organizers of the conference. We offer you the results of research on Adaptive Toolkit, a branch-oriented workshop environment for enlargement, the cloud-based e-learning media platform. The deepening of the application boundaries of the informative educational technologies puts forward the need to purposefully increase the efficiency of virtual environments of academic space and improve the quality of services provided by scientific and pedagogical communication networks. The flexibility of such provision of cognitive activity of the educational process subjects is possible only with the expansion of criteria and means of assessing the level of competence of future specialists in engineering and technical specialties. The research showed that in existing platforms of world and domestic practice, the question of the accumulated information interactive introduction of sectoral enterprises production process directly into the educational environment of experimental researchers is practically not covered, and the unification directions of the subject's area composition tools for the provision of interdisciplinary pedagogical services are very superficially determined. Regardless of the virtual laboratory purpose and its place in academic curriculum, there is a need to determine generalized categories of data structures in the designed environment of the educational experiment, for which mathematical models of the corresponding tuples are built. Therefore, according to the object-oriented model of the experimental research environment stipulated in the presented project, some current component Di as an instant of class D will be determined primarily by the identifier of an individual component class unique for the research subject area and the identifier of a specific instance, which is exceptional in the simulated experimental scheme. Further, the basic properties of some current link Lj as an instant of a connecting component's class L will also be determined by the native class identifier and the identifier of the jth instance of the link. The thematic attributes of the connection component show the start and end types of the link. Pointer structure of the connector's location is corresponding with appropriate tag of the main components. So, the data flows fragment structure with the properties of the current connection component will be simpler, more compact, and will be processed faster by computing resources of graphics device interface at the end-user terminal of the learning system. The data structure fragment, which cover the independent text components E necessary for the information support of the learning experiment scheme, in the presented project doesn't carry any technical load and doesn't require the allocation of a separate class of components internal library. Particular attention in the presented project is paid to the original mechanism of detailing in the experiment's integral scheme of a certain region RP as a separate step according to the map of the technological process. The set of such selected regions with the corresponding properties is taught in the final fragment of the data stream content of the subject area covering the array of the component sequence in the direction of the signal in the researched region with its inherent cumulated mathematical model for further automized transition process modeling. The correctness and completeness of the conceptual description of basic templates collection of multiple components of the subject area defines the application limits of the projected environment in the purpose expansion and the involvement of the maximum number of educational disciplines. Such templates should be implemented in the form of distributed software libraries, which will be dynamically connected to the application environment of learning experiment in accordance with the subject area of the academic discipline. The content part of the component description is located in the identification block descriptor of the packed class of the software library. The presentation features of component instance in the application window workspace, its appearance and behavior are covered by the descriptor of the graphics block. The original descriptor of the accompanying block is introduced into the presented project to preserve the contextual information and methodological support of the experimental research on the relevant topic, in particular indicating the implementation sequence of the current studies exercise. The original descriptor of the accompanying unit, using the rest of specified categories of information flows, provides flexible integration of the virtual laboratory designed environment into the academic educational space in the service of the authenticated recipient. An important means in supporting scientific research and activation of students' cognitive activities through teamwork conducted in the designed environment of experimental research, it is possible to get real manufacturing telemetry reading. Descriptor of a numeric array of transient process values of component as attributes of the location component scheme of experiment allows connect to one of the specialized distributed dynamic libraries of some relevant channel of data exchange with manufacturing information resources to prompt broadcast of relevant pieces from the profile industry. As a source of such manufacturing resources in the project applied through protocol JDF description of industry processes. The presented inform-communicative media platform of the virtual laboratory was introduced into the educational process in the discipline electrical engineering and electromechanism according to the educational and professional program of higher education bachelor's degree in automation and computer integrated technologies. Measurements were performed to compare the competencies of students who completed the first year of study. Under the terms of exploring, only the experimental group was allowed to work in the virtual laboratory. Instead, the control group traditionally worked with highly specialized computer applications for digital modeling of electronic circuits, micro CAP 11. It should be noted that this electronic design automation software doesn't comply with the requirements of domestic standards in the graphical designation of subject area components, and also the complexity and specificity of the English language interface, especially for initial years students. Here presents a histogram of the academic performance distribution of the groups that participated in the experiment. Control group marked with cons experimental parallelepiped at the end of the year. In the experimental group, compared with the control group, there is an increase in the number of students at intermediate and advanced levels. This indicates that the students of the experimental group study the subject area faster and more deeply in virtual laboratory. Thus, the results of the pedagogical exploring shows that the interdisciplinary environment of laboratory research introduced into the educational process with sufficient tools helps to increase the advancement of future specialists in mastering the subject area. This progress is obviously due to the lack of redundant features that distract students from the content of the laboratory task and a positive user experience when interacting with a practical and friendly media platform. We thank the conference organizers for the perfect organization of scientific event in difficult circumstances. And last thanks for your attention. The report is complete. The authors will be happy to provide comprehensive answers to interesting questions.